World War I. Sweden declared themselves as neutral during both world wars, but we were still affected by it in many ways. The war led to many disturbances and demonstrations in Sweden.
During the First War, the Spanish flu started to spread. The flu got its name because Spain was neutral during the war and was the first country to write about it. A lot of the European countries that were in the war kept it a secret because they did not want the enemy to know how it affected them negatively. The Spanish flu came to Sweden in 1918 through trading when the First World War was about to end. The Spanish flu killed about 3,000 people in Sweden.
Another example is the major trade blockades that were set up during the war. This led to lack of food and high prices of little food that we had left or could make on our own. Some prices rose to more than 100% of the original price. Our rations board policy worked poorly and the lack of food made people uneasy. The Swede ate rutabagas and mangoes to survive. Even cold winters and several years of crop failure led to a shortage of especially on potatoes, and the blockade led to a shortage of bread.
This is how a rationing ticket looked for coffee and tea. There were many tickets for different goods. When giving it to your local store, you received your part of the storage, since there was a lack of food and everyone had to share equally. The lack of food, especially on potatoes, during the spring 1917 led to a number of riots at some places in Sweden. The 5th of May, some women had tried to buy potatoes in a store at Södermannagatan in Stockholm. When the women refused to leave the store on the police order, more and more people gathered around the store, which led to conflicts between hundreds of policemen and a crowd of approximately 1,000 people. This is referred to the potato riots. Another riot occurred in May 4th in 1917 when 1,800 women marched in Norrköping to the town hall to protest against the poor food supply. After the demonstration, the women stormed bakeries and meat shops. The police first tried to stop the protesters but eventually gave up. It was one of many violent incidents that occurred in Sweden in the spring of 1917. This is a picture of a newspaper after yet another riot at Gustav Adolf Square in Stockholm.
The government and parliament were divided on how Sweden would be defended. Many were distressed. This led the king to make a speech to the people about the topic. The king promised that the defense would be strengthened, which the government was against. The king had no right to promise anything when it came to defense. The government scolded the king, but it all ended with the government forced to resign. The king appointed Hjalmar Hammarskjöld as prime minister. However, he was forced to submit his resignation 4 years later due to claims that he took a stand in the war after he rejected the proposal for a common trade agreement with Great Britain.
There were those who wanted Sweden to enter the war on the Central Power side, but parliamentary parties were united. Neutrality would be maintained and defended if needed. However, the Swedish neutrality was violated on Swedish territorial waters when a foreign warship was spotted, and then in a few cases even Swedish cargo vessel was sunk, and of course Sweden protested against this violation.
During the World War I, the many protests and demonstrations from the workers and the poor people led to many changes. In 1917, 1 year before the end of the war, people were worried that a workers' revolution would break out. Some have we already mentioned, but there were a few more as well. The workers demanded bread, 8 hours of work, and universal suffrage. And it was not just men fighting for the right to vote. Women had been fighting for a long time, but it was not until the 19th century the real fight began. They started a group called LKPR, which was only open for female members, but their political opinion did not matter. The group had at most 17,000 members and managed to collect 350,000 signatures for women's suffrage in the 1913. Government introduced universal suffrage in 1921, and the trade union gave everyone 8 hours days of work. Thank you for listening.
Tack för att ni lyssnade!
Goodbye.
Hej